Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at something really fundamental, I think, to our daily lives. Just conversations. And we've got some interesting stuff to look at, excerpts from a podcast called Everyday Chronicles Life in Conversations.
Right, and the episode is The Art of Small Talk and Meaningful Moments. Sounds promising.
It does. And our mission, really, is to dig into how these exchanges, the ones we have every day, the seemingly ordinary ones, how they can actually, sometimes surprisingly, lead to genuine connection. Add a bit of, meaning to the daily grind.
Okay, I'm with you. So where do we start?
Let's start with a classic, grabbing your morning coffee. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Rushing.
Definitely. So the podcast describes this exact scene. Someone's clearly in a hurry, gets to the counter, and the barista asks the standard, Hey, how's it going?
And you usually just say, fine.
Yeah.
Or, good, you. It's almost automatic.
Exactly. It's the script. But in this case, the person actually gave a slightly more honest answer. Like what? Something along the lines of, honestly, bit chaotic, but this coffee right here might just save my day.
Okay, yeah, that's different. Still brief, but more real.
Right. And what's fascinating is what happened next. It wasn't just the words, it was the effect.
Go on.
Well, this little bit of honesty kind of opened the door. They shared a quick laugh. And then, get this, the person actually spills a bit of their coffee.
Oh, no. Awkward.
You'd think, but the barista, instead of just, grabbing a cloth, responds by sharing their own story. Like, oh man, one time I dropped a whole tray of drinks during the morning rush.
Okay. So it becomes a shared thing, not just a transaction anymore.
Precisely. That routine moment turns into something, human. A tiny connection sparked by shared clumsiness and a little honesty.
So what's the takeaway there? What's really going on?
Well, I think it taps into that basic need to just be seen as a person, not just a customer or a role. That little shared vulnerability, even over spilled coffee, it creates this sort of micro connection. Probably made both of them feel a bit more, acknowledged.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so that's a quick interaction. But what about those really awkward moments, the small talk dead zones?
Well, like elevators.
Yeah.
Or grocery store lines. Waiting room.
Exactly. The podcast touches on those too, right? That feeling of shared discomfort in the silence.
Totally. The default is often just silence. Maybe avoid eye contact. Hope the elevator comes quickly.
Or you fall back on the classics like, looks like rain later. Or stating the obvious, wow, this line is long.
Which, let's be honest, rarely goes anywhere. But the podcast suggests something else. Instead of just filling silence, try intentionally breaking the tension.
How so?
With a genuine observation. The example they used was someone in an elevator complimenting a stranger's tote bag. Something specific.
Interesting. Not just nice weather, but something personal. Kind of.
Kinda, yeah. It's focused on the other person, shows you've actually noticed something.
And what happened? Did it work? Or just make it weirder?
Apparently it worked. That potentially painful 3-minute ride turned into a mini conversation.
Really? About a tote bag?
Yeah. The person who got the compliment talked about their favorite bookstore, where they got it, which led to coffee preferences. And then, crucially, they both admitted they hated awkward elevator silences.
So they connected over the awkwardness itself, eventually.
Exactly. So the insight there isn't just talk, it's maybe how you talk. That genuine, specific comment, it sort of signals real interest.
It moves past the superficial stuff.
Right. It says, hey, I see you, fellow human, sharing this slightly weird, enclosed space. It acknowledges the shared situation, but tries to make it a bit better.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got sparking connections in passing. What about keeping connections going? With people we already know.
Yes. The podcast brings up something simple, but maybe powerful. Just sending a text. Not for any reason, just thinking of you.
Hey, just thinking about you. It sounds nice, but do people actually do that often?
Well, the podcast argues not often enough. We're so connected digitally, right? But it's usually for logistics or sharing links or making plans.
Yeah, there's usually an agenda, isn't there? A reason to reach out.
But these agendaless messages, the just because ones, they apparently have this outsized positive impact. They can lead to some really good conversations, surprisingly.
Do they give an example?
They do. Someone sending a random text like, hey, remember that truly weird vending machine pizza we tried back in college?
Oh, wow, okay. That's specific. And kind of random.
Totally random, just a shared memory, seemingly out of the blue. But that small thing, that little shared remember when, it acts like a catalyst.
Why do you think that works so well, that kind of random callback?
Maybe because it shows you remember the little things, the shared history. It's low pressure, too. Just a quick, hey, this funny thing popped into my head.
And what was the result in the podcast example? Did the other person even remember the pizza?
They did. And apparently, that one little text led to a 2-hour phone call, just reminiscing, catching up. And they even ended up making plans to actually see each other soon, all from a text about bad pizza.
That's actually pretty great. It shows you don't need some big reason or event to reconnect.
Exactly. It highlights the power of just being proactive in nurturing those existing ties. It's not passive. You're actively saying, hey, this connection matters.
Okay, so if we kind of pull all these examples together, the coffee shop, the elevator, the text message, what's the common thread? What are the main insights?
Well, I think the big one is that small talk maybe gets a bad rap. It doesn't have to be superficial or meaningless.
Right, it can be the starting point, the sort of opening.
Yeah, exactly. It's the potential entry point for something, genuinely connecting, even if it's brief.
And it seems like taking that extra moment, choosing to engage just a little bit more openly, can really change the outcome.
Definitely. Moving beyond the automatic script, whether it's with a stranger or someone you know. That little bit of extra presence or honesty.
It leads to these unexpected positive moments.
And that text message example really drives home the point about investing in the relationships we already have, proactively.
Yeah, those little check-ins, those small gestures, they really seem to strengthen the bonds. It's not always about grand gestures.
Not at all. So putting it all together, the podcast seems to be saying that the richness of life isn't just in the big milestones.
It's also in the accumulation of these everyday moments, these little conversational encounters.
Right. And if we approach them with a bit more, intention, openness, they can weave together into something surprisingly meaningful.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does, which maybe leads to a final thought for you listening right now. Think about the next interaction you have today, maybe one that seems totally insignificant.
Like buying groceries or waiting for a bus.
Yeah. Could you maybe shift how you engage? Just slightly. Offer a slightly more open answer than fine, or notice something specific.
Or maybe even send that random thinking of you text later.
Exactly. What might you learn or share or feel if you just leaned in a tiny bit more? It's kind of interesting to consider where those little moments might lead, right?